This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky at the birds, the planes.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow. And with me is James, Superman Red, the Man of Steel, Cole. And with us, if you're watching down below, is our special guest, Levi, the round Superman himself. What's up, fellas?
How's it going, everyone?
It's going good, man.
Day saw the first friggin' snowflakes of the year.
Yes, it did. It was quite peaceful. I had a big day at work and I actually got to go in late because I had worked so late yesterday. So it was a nice relaxing day. I got to chill with Jania this morning and it was nice. Peaceful. For all those who are watching, what's neat, and I'm just gonna say we didn't do this on purpose, but there's 3 of us, and on StreamYard we have the circle for how you see us, and the way that the Krypton Report symbol is, there's 3 dots. Looks like there's lines. Makes it kind of looks like a certain character symbol. Wink, wink. Huh?
Yeah, it's very reminiscent. Very reminiscent of Brainiac symbol.
But I'll say, did not do this on purpose. Now, we don't have a whole lot of news, but we are going to get the couple little bits that I have here, and you're probably thinking, what are you talking about, Tyler? Because I didn't add it to the notes because it really isn't that much. First things first. James and I took a 2-week break just because life happens. Join us this Sunday. We will be going back into our Superman the Animated Series watch, 9 a.m. live stream on our YouTube and Facebook. Check out our Patreon if you haven't for the Supernatural Report episodes. And Mr. James Cole hosts the Horror Report podcast. We just dropped on our Patreon a commentary, which was a kind of crossover between the Krypton Report, the Horror Report, and Gravely Amusing on the film Brightburn.
Yeah, and that's fun. Getting to talk horror Superman.
So the first piece of news is this right here. We will be hosting the Superman, the Legacy of a Hero panel if you're in the Columbus, Ohio area at Columbus GalaxyCon, 5:15 to 6 p.m. in panel room C170 on December 8th. So that's coming up. The other kind of bit of news is 2 kind of rumorish things. And you know me, I'm not a huge rumor person, especially now. We've been burned by so many, but we are hearing predictions that we will see this Superman trailer sometime mid-December. So what you guys' thoughts on that?
Whenever we see it, I'm excited to see, and I just hope it's going to be if we do get it this early, that it's just going to be a teaser trailer, and I mean, maybe not a 2.5 minute teaser trailer.
That is not a teaser. That is not a teaser. Levi, thoughts?
I mean, James Gunn, I believe, said the other day that the trailer is done and sitting on his hard drive. So, I mean, at this point, we just have to have faith in whatever they're planning. So whenever it drops, I'm sure I'll be dropping everything to run out and watch it. So.
Yeah, as soon as it comes up, I'll have watched it on a couple of devices. Depending on where I'm at, it's going to be like the biggest screen possible.
It'll be a watch on my phone, then watch at home on my TV. And by the time we go to record, I'll probably have watched it at least 30 times.
If it comes out, I'll watch it on my phone immediately. I'll watch it on my tablet a few times that day. And by the time after I get home from work, first thing I'm doing is putting it up on the TV.
I just hope like I go back to I was always as far as like teaser or first trailers go, I still think the Superman Returns is an amazing trailer. That first trailer I think is just epic. The Man of Steel trailer was always neat. It gave you more of a feel vibe and didn't show you anything but voiceover, him flying in the distance, and a symbol, which is great for a teaser, but I want a little bit more than that. But
not what they've called a teaser. The last like handful of movies we've all like watched, and yeah.
I think for me, a successful teaser for this is the finished suit. Like, what's it going to look like after post has been done on it, and do we get to see Crypto?
yeah, I'm kind of curious what. I kind of want to almost just go search for like every James Gunn film, like the first trailer teasers, just kind of see what his thought aesthetic is.
It's almost interesting though, the idea of the way that trailers go. We used to get like 3 trailers going up to a movie, and these days we really only get like the teaser trailer, which kind of reminds me of like how first trailers were. Shows you bits, doesn't give you any story,
Mhm.
And then the second one gives you some story, and you see some of the same bits. They expand on some of those same bits to give you like bits of the story. Then you get maybe your final trailer, and that's what we've been getting lately. I don't know why they went from first to teaser and then just trailer and maybe a second or a final trailer before the movie comes out. But the turnover rate is so fast these days. I mean,
right,
6 months out, over 6 months, 7 to 8 months at that point, is still quite a ways out these days. But where it's placed, they do have to get ahead of the marketing. I think where it's placed in the year, being between Jurassic World and Fantastic Four. Like, I think they need to make a splash with the marketing to try and ensure that they get some box office that month.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit, that Hollywood's been talking about how no one wants to come back to the movies and how they're kind of suffering. And yet you put 3 of your biggest tentpoles for the summer that year, one right after another. Like, I guess I read that James Gunn picked the release of Superman. It's actually on his father's birthday. And it was the passing of his father that really helped him inspire to write the script. And that's great. Truly. But I kind of wish it came out like May or June and really kicked off, because I can't really think too much of what's coming out in May next year. I need to look at this whole year schedule, but July is going to be so packed.
Especially the comic book genre, really since COVID, Marvel's had years where they put 3 movies in, and then 1 this year, and then DC's gone how many years without having? It'll be like a year and a half, 2 years since DC had a movie in theaters.
Well,
yeah, it'll be almost 2 years.
Yeah, and that's good. That's a palate cleanser,
Yeah. I mean, except for, of course, Joker, but
we don't talk about that.
Say DC.
James, shut up.
And doesn't even say DC in front of it.
We don't talk about that, dude. But okay. The other quick things was,
I mean, we talk about the Joker. We don't talk about Arthur Fleck. That's what you mean.
What do you call it? See, now I can't remember. Dang it, James.
Joker threw you all off.
No, I was thinking James Gunn, I saw he posted a thing. They're raffling on eBay tickets to the premiere and after party for Superman to raise money for veterans. Yeah, I'm not bidding on that because I can't afford to bid on that.
If I could afford it, I would, but
Frank Grillo Frank Grillo commented on the trailer, said it gave him goosebumps. Of course it did. And then the other, was supposedly, I haven't seen confirmation of this and I haven't really looked, but James Gunn showed like a special audience a cut of the movie, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's still like early in post, like, so so whatever, what I'm saying. It's kind of like, okay, all right. So the next
Looking forward to it.
The next thing is the Green Lantern statue that was presented in Hollywood recently. It looks awesome. Looks great. It joins the Wonder Woman and Batman statues. I know there's been a lot of outcry, like how we got this statue without Superman having one. I pretty much figure that he'll get one next year, because there's going to be next year supposed to be the year of Superman, the summer of Superman, or whatever.
It's probably already been commissioned.
Yeah, like I just feel like that they're going to use that to help tie in with everything. So, but that's literally all the.
The statue does look amazing. Looks fantastic.
Yeah. So while we're talking here, I was looking up the like movie slates. Yeah, June has the Ballerina, Pixar's. So Pixar's next one and the live action How to Train Your Dragon come out on the same day, but then June 20th and June 27th don't really have that huge blockbuster. So that could have been something. May has the Thunderbolts, May 2nd. And then May 23rd is the live action Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. So, yeah.
I think they have room to kind of spread it out. But I mean,
but then you look at it like, I'm just saying, like when you think of the summer, Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, and the Fantastic Four. Like, I really
July's a big month.
That's just too much, but
yeah. And out of the three, I would want to see in theaters Superman and Fantastic Four.
Oh, I want to see them all because Jurassic.
So I want to see them all, but I've missed the last. Two Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. I didn't see either one of those in theater.
I miss Fallen Kingdom because it came out when my grandfather died, like that same week, and what do you call it? He died, and then I started a new job, and I just didn't get around to it. And then I saw Dominion, and this will be. I don't know what to feel about this movie yet because I like the director and I like his style. And this is the Talk About Movies podcast, but we have a lot of stuff to cover. So we brought Levi to join us because we always wanted Levi, and poor Levi has been sick for a while. And we're glad that he finally has healed his body through his green Kryptonian crystal while he wrapped a blanket around him and stood in the fireplace. And but our comic, we are finishing up our run of the New 52. Superman. We did Superman, Action, Superman and Wonder Woman, and we have come to the conclusion where it ties into the launch of the Rebirth line. We decided to do it this way as we ran our experiment of reading just the trades to see if that's the way to do it, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that no, it's not.
Not at all. That's why this trade is the Final Days of Superman. It is Superman books, Action books, Superman and Wonder Woman, and even a Supergirl issue in here.
And it's Superman, and it's Superman and Batman, which we didn't.
And a Superman and Batman issue, yeah.
Which we didn't cover because that book is weird. Because it is. Because for anyone who doesn't know, that book starts where you're following Superman and Batman of Earth 2. Then they die. which is part of the launch of the New 52.
Which
And
is how I
then-
read the Earth 2 series. which is
And
pretty
then it transitions later to when we're in the depowered Superman for a little bit with the super heavy Jim Gordon Batman before eventually catching up. So we just didn't focus on that one, but there's a very and even in this, okay, is what we're about to read here. There is a reference to a book that was, I don't even consider it part of the New 52. It was an outlier. I thought it was its own series. Just a side kind of story, but then they make a reference tying it into the events. And we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Does everyone have their comments pulled up here? Or it is your choosing to read?
Yes, I do. On my DC Universe app.
So I have mine on the app. There are still some things that annoy the crap out of me. How you like once you read something, going back to it on the app, where it doesn't really come right back.
Right. Well, when it comes to books that we're reading and things like that for this, when I wanna bring them right back, having them in the downloads, like a physical downloaded having it physically downloaded so it doesn't just move on. You can just go right there, bring that issue up, and it's been helpful during our reading.
I need to do that more. I had some issues with that in the past.
Well, my tablet only goes from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi anyways, so I don't have a service on my tablet. So it's just I take it that way. So that way in between, if I want to read it because I'm sitting in a waiting room somewhere, I got it.
Yeah, mine is the same. I don't have service on it. Levi, how are you reading the book today?
I ended up just buying it off Google Books because it was cheap, but I also have a physical copy, so we got the tablet sitting here.
So just as a quick overview, this is the last couple of issues of the different book run, like we talked about. As a story, what did you think of this?
I mean, as a send-off, seven issues or so. As a send-off, I think it hits all the right notes for the New 52 Superman. You get like all the goodbyes you'd want to see.
And continue.
The art's incredible. I mean, it's a who's who of who drew Superman the best during the New 52 as well. So,
absolutely.
But I have thoughts, but we'll save them for as we get towards the end.
Okay. James, thoughts?
I mean, he pretty much said it. Like, I like it was a good send off for the character, especially since it became like this event after event after event thing. The New 52 Superman went through a whole hell of a lot in a very short amount of time. So, kind of having this compiling the way they did it, because there were so many events that we didn't even touch on, really. I mean, we kind of made a reference to here and there, but
Forever Evil being
Forever Evil, Convergence,
Trinity War, but Convergence was weird,
yeah.
man.
Trinity War, but they were still involved, and there were still like these I mean, damn near Omega level events over and over and over again. Things happening to Clark. So
he never got a chance to breathe.
No, not at all. Not at all. So it really is a culmination of that. And I think for the most part, I think that it worked with, all the character interactions, the character relationships, the goodbyes. It was pretty good. There were some story beats that I don't know, didn't need to be there or didn't connect or give too much extra. Like, I mean, we'll get into it. The idea of the Argus and them being in China, different. Like, I'm not sure exactly how those things connected. So, but we can get into that as we.
It's the New 52's problem with Superman if they never knew what they were quite doing with him. So they're wrapping up random plot threads in this so they don't have to deal with them once mainline Superman appears again.
And you know what? Like I was reading New 52 Superman and everything. And I think having not read the Lois and Clark miniseries and then just reading this, how we've done it, I think the emotional impact hits me stronger. Of like, and you know, I've always had a problem, I've said, with the fact that it seems like Superman doesn't matter until he dies. You know?
Right.
And here we are at another death of Superman story. And it's like, I think having read it the way we did, it's definitely hitting us harder in the feels. So,
Right. This is more of a. This is definitely more of an all-star death of Superman than a knockdown, drag-out fight, beat to the death Superman.
And since we aren't going into the next phase of books into our next year or next month, you know, as we get to the end of this, we'll kind of just, for people who maybe not know, just kind of touch on where this goes. But let's start. We don't have to go issue by issue, but we can just kind of go through and touch on like high points or just discussion points. But let's just talk about the first panel, full page, Clark's face or Superman's face. And all it says is, "I'm dying."
I mean, it's a beautiful page. Michael Janin really killed it with this issue that he did.
Yeah, fantastic portrait.
And then it's is it the third? I'm looking at it, so like I got the third page, I think.
Yeah, which would be a splash page.
Where it talks about, you know, the fire pits of apocalypse.
Which is the Dark Side War in the Justice League book.
Yep. The Kryptonite Chamber Room at Argus, which we covered. And then this is the one, his battle with Rao. And this is the one I was like, okay. Because that came from Brian Hitch's Justice JLA book.
Oh, really?
Which I love, but like it was not New 52 at all.
Exactly. That's my point, is when that book, because we already had a JLA. I can't even talk. We already had a JLA in the New 52, which wasn't, you know, the usual JLA. And so that felt like just it was a side book when it came out. That was like, if you want Superman and the Justice League, but you don't want to be in continuity and all that, read this. But then here they are kind of bringing that in as if it's happening.
That Superman and that, because that's what I really, really enjoy that one. But that is not the same Superman. He doesn't act like New 52 Superman. Like the only similarity is, I guess, he's in the same suit.
So I need to reread it. It's been a while, but I was kind of like, huh. But so basically, we're in this point where he's in the fortress.
Yeah, I didn't know where that one came from.
And he's angry because he's dying. He has all this he has to accomplish. So, all right, you guys' thoughts, anything on this in this first issue? Go. Whoever wants to talk first.
I mean, other than the art being gorgeous, the interaction with Lana,
which is great, and that's one thing I have to praise this New 52 for, is really making Lana a wonderful character.
The self-admitted in the issue morbid desire to be buried next to his parents. Like, it's a very like touching, sad moment, because I remember reading this the first time when it came out, because I hadn't been super up on the Superman comics, and then reading this and being like, oh man, like, I really need to go back and dive into this Superman again.
I do like when he's interacting with Lana, how everything's in a hue of red, and he's wearing a red shirt, and just her face crying, knowing that her best friend is gonna die. and then him going to talk to Lois and taking her on the flight. And that's really the first issue. You know, it ends with him saying, I want you to tell the world about the life of Clark Kent and Superman.
Yeah.
Which is
And
so-
then you got that little bit of that Chinese, that Dr. Omen in the lab in the beginning. And
Go ahead.
I don't quite see how that connects to the energy that flies through and blasts this guy in the truck.
Well, all that is what's setting up the Superman of China, the Kong Keenan story.
which I'm not gonna lie, every time that
Okay.
particular side story pops up in this graphic novel, I flip.
I will
through
tell
pretty
you,
quick.
I don't feel like it
So
should
it
have
actually
been in
doesn't
there.
have a connection to. Okay, so it doesn't actually have a connection to the convict who gets hit with Superman's powers
No, he's just a random person who gets
and
hit with
becomes the
Superman's power.
imposter. Yeah. So okay.
I just feel like that could have been like brought in later, you know, when you actually launched that book and then kind of showed you like, oh, it came from this.
It reminds me when they tagged on the Shazam stuff in the Justice League comics at the beginning of the New 52.
But see, I like that because it was back to having backups in the back of comics, kind of like when they did Black Mirror and they had some of like the not Black Mirror, what do you call it? It was when Scott Snyder was writing like in Detective and he was doing like the backups.
Oh yeah.
With James Gordon. Like I liked having those stories.
I didn't say it was a good idea they did it here, but
Okay, fair.
it's not the best way to introduce a brand new character. If you're doing it to introduce Shazam into the Justice League, that makes sense. It's a character we know, and you're introducing the New 52 version, but no one knows who the Chinese Superman is because you guys are inventing him on the page right here.
Yeah. And I mean, my thing is I like that character and I like that run. I've talked about it before, but I kind of wish they could have found a different name for him than like the Superman of China. You know, like I just kind of wish they just kind of felt they found a different thing. So
it's one of my issues with this story, not because I mean, if it's a good, I haven't read any of it, but if it's a good run, it's a good run. But this is a death of Superman story that you're interjecting that into, and we'll get to it at the end because I have big thoughts on the last issue.
I mean, it's almost like another introduction of your other Supermen like Steel and John Henry Iron, Eradicator and Superboy and Cyborg Superman.
but I mean, all those came, you know, after the death.
They did. In a story, a little foresight in it, but yeah, no. So I didn't see how it did connect, but I see the difference in the blood. Wasn't sure how the solar flare energy that freaking hit the guy.
I just
connected to that over there because they were tracing it over there, and I guess they went to the wrong location.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
So
the other guy was at Argus.
So the second issue is the Batman Superman where he's in Gotham, and this one is basically him going to tell Bruce. And what I like most about this is the stuff that takes place in the cave. Where he tells Bruce what's going to happen, what's going on, and you know, he's leaving. Alfred takes a moment to talk with him, and you just kind of see Bruce sitting there and smashes his computer because
you're missing the really awesome page right before where Superman's carrying Bruce.
Oh,
Bruce tells him, "You're really pissing me off."
I mean, that is great. You're right. But other than that, like, there's not much else I really care about in this issue. Because we do have this imposter Superman that's basically possessed by how would we say this? He's possessed by the solar flare energy that was consciously brought to life. Even for me, that's a little bit of a stretch, but we'll go with it. So
At no point does it make sense in the story. It's one of those things you just have to roll. It's like in Smallville when they would get hit by lightning and they were touching Clark and his powers would just magically transfer. Same thing.
The kryptonite was the ultimate MacGuffin, okay? Because in Smallville, it did whatever you needed it to be.
So when they give you the explanation later, it was you were hit by a bolt of sentient energy that was infused with a mutated copy of my genome, which is why you think you're me.
Smallville. That is Smallville's storyline right there. I bet we could go find an episode that said that somewhere.
I mean,
it was the catalyst. Kryptonite was the catalyst. It did whatever needed to be done for that episode to get your freak of the week.
So, but this issue we see that Clark gets attacked by these. They represent like the Chinese deities, and he's bleeding. And he says, the issue ends where I've got to get to National City so I can find Supergirl. And then we get the third issue is a Supergirl issue. And I read a good chunk, maybe all of the Supergirl, the New 52. It was an interesting book. And I feel like it had trouble finding its footing at times. But he basically, the big thing is here, he breaks in and he thinks he's rescuing her, destroys the lab, but she tells him how she had issues with her powers and what had been going on with her. And I feel like these two characters never got a chance to really come together like they should have in the New 52. They were always at odds with each other and always apart.
They did some weird stuff with Supergirl in the New 52. I mean, she really was never around Clark like she should have been.
The only thing I thought was neat that they did with her is when they made her a Red Lantern.
Yeah.
I thought that was probably her best story beat. And then we have the guy who's possessed by the energy show up at the Daily Planet saying he's Clark. And terrorize. He kills some reporters and terrorizes. Lois eventually takes him out with a taser, which is an interesting thought because, I guess he wasn't full energied out. And then this is the first time Clark takes Kara to the fortress. And she sees the fortress and he has himself as a AI in the fortress. And he basically
she has a key to the fortress because he tells her that what he gives her opens up everything. She's been
he gives it to her though.
He gives her the fortress, yeah.
So because wasn't this a new fortress he just rebuilt? Yeah.
After Vandal Savage fused it with his ship. With the Watchtower and his ship in Savage Dawn.
And then this issue ends with Wonder Woman standing outside yelling, "When were you going to tell me?" I do think it's very interesting that she's drawn having her sword and shield out.
Yeah, unnecessary, very threatening.
No,
you're not gonna go to your newly maybe ex-boyfriend's place right now, sword drawn, shield out.
No, she's pissed. She's coming in hot.
So Levi, let me ask you, how do you feel in these books about the relationship of Superman and Wonder Woman?
I actually liked it, and I remember arguing with people when the New 52 was going. I think the end goal should have eventually still been Clark getting with Lois, but then, they kill Superman and then kill Lois later on. But The Superman Wonder Woman pairing always made sense to me when, I don't want to say they're younger because Wonder Woman's 10,000 years old, but when Clark's younger,
Yeah.
because she's going to be the only person on the planet who can relate to, like, hey, if I touch something too hard, it's going to end up in a different galaxy.
Yeah.
So,
You know what? When it first happened, I liked it. I thought if you're trying to really restart these characters without just putting them back where we left them, well, like you said, with the end goal eventually getting back there to build new stories and create new things, great. But I think rereading it this time, knowing where it goes and how it goes, I appreciated the Wonder Woman Superman relationship even more. And I liked it even more, knowing where and how this story is going to go. So
it bugged me not to change too far. Like the animated movies that draw so heavily on the New 52 stuff, they just abruptly end the Superman Wonder Woman relationship to do Death of Superman and have Lois and Clark be together. So I'm glad the comics never did that. Like they let the Wonder Woman Superman relationship play out until this, at least. But
yeah, there was supposed to be a sense of time passing though, kind of in between those movies. So
well,
and then the way that they played it out though, still how friendly they were and how familiar they were with each other, I think worked really good in the Death of Superman.
I mean, they kept a very cordial relationship, and it worked quite lovely and quite nice. Crap. What was I going to say? If I remember right, in those film series, there were supposed to be a couple more movies that they kind of sped through.
There was, they did, yeah.
And to get certain beats to finish them up. So, all right. So the next issue is the Superman Wonder Woman issue, and I love how the first one is once again a splash page of just Wonder Woman. Like the art is great, and she just says Clark, and you know, it really, and then that splash page of them kissing after she says, "Do you love me, Clark?" And I really think the art for this is, but this is where we go and we meet. We tie back, like you were saying, to Jeff Johns. What do you call it? We went over the Ulysses. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
And basically, the sentient energy Superman comes alive, helps break Ulysses out, so Ulysses gets his power, and fights Superman. And this is where he realizes he's weaker. He comments on it, and then, you know, they get the power back on, so the lights come back on. And Ulysses, like, this is his last kind of go. Like, he is the character that's not come back since this.
Mm-mm.
So
I don't know, which is kind of a shame. Like, you know, because you could easily one day just write like something happened at Argus and his stuff got shut down and he's out, you know.
Or he's just magically in Gym World like Connor was for no reason that made no sense, but he came back.
Yeah.
Because by this point we've had, let's see, Metal, Death Metal, Doomsday Clock, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths.
So he could come from anywhere, really.
So we've had enough, you know, crises, world altering, changing, universe reshaping events, you know.
I mean, we even had Wally West appearing from Barry's memory, basically, to start Rebirth. So
yeah, and then we had the Rebirth Reborn thing that kind of synced the whole universes as one. So, you know, good stuff, man. The next issue is the next Batman Superman, and it shows
Batman. I mean, you got Convergence that happened before that, and you got
but all Convergence did
coming back in the story.
The only thing that Convergence did was that's how we
That's where
got,
we got our Superman, our black
Yeah.
suit Superman.
yeah, and then that's how Earth 2 restarted with the society and everything. That's the only fallout that we had
Mhm.
from Convergence. Everything else was kind of just like, oh, this is kind of neat. Wink, wink, you know? It but that's how we got our Superman was from Convergence.
But
So
don't
in
they
this-
even kind of retcon that later on with Doomsday Clock?
Oh, dude. Because you got to get to Reborn where it syncs up all time happen together because you have we'll talk about that at the end, but basically that's when you have the idea that Dr. Manhattan it's so convoluted because you can tell their purpose for Rebirth and where eventually Doomsday Clock was supposed to be continuity. But it took so long to get done. By the time they got it done, it's kind of a continuity, but on the side story. Because if you look at the original art for Doomsday Clock, it's Superman in the costume that he was in the comics at the time.
Yeah.
But by the time they got there, he was back to his regular costume where Bendis had put him. So it
Thank
just
you, Jeff Johns, for taking 18 months to write 12 issues.
yeah, but we have this is probably the one issue.
Well, I think it was announced quite a bit earlier than from the time they started coming out.
Yeah,
You know, it took over a year and a half to get 12 issues out, almost 2 years to get 12 issues out. And then they were planning on that book for like a solid year.
It was a big deal because I mean, the first issue of Doomsday Clock proper didn't come out till November of 2017.
Right. Well, I mean, it started all the way back with the button.
But I'm saying like it started with Rebirth because you have that finger, the blue finger coming in there, and the Superman's going to touch it. But
yep, Jeff Johns, Rebirth, the button, all of that. Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, this is the one issue you could pretty much skip. The Batman Superman where they go to China, and it really is a waste of time because this is where we learn that Chinese has their own superheroes. And we meet the doctor that's experimenting with the sentient energy, which is, like I said, setting up the Superman of China story. And the biggest thing from this is the sentient energy Superman shows up at Lois Lane's. Okay. The next issue has a great cover because that's where you see what the new Superman costume is supposed to really look like, where it's the new 52's second costume flying up, but we see the Superman in the black outfit in the window. And this one starts where you have Clark and Wonder Woman flying together, and he starts to fall, and he lands on top of the bat plane, and he actually has to ride in the bat plane. And then the sentient energy takes Lois and says, "I'm going to show you something." And this is where he takes her to the farm where we meet Clark White with Jonathan White, and they're, where they live, where he brings the other Lois, and that's what
he's just a husband and a father working a farm.
Yep. And then sentient energy blows away his clothes and reveals the black suit. And this is when the new 52 Superman meets that Superman with the great "I don't understand who you are." Quite a long story, which we have no time for, Kal-El.
And the artist did a good job making Superman younger and older look quite similar, but different.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a great use of the black suit and being different. Levi, thoughts?
I mean, I really like the older Superman in this because I'm a huge fan of that miniseries they did with him. to me, the highlight of this issue, and I wish they would have done more with it than just the 3 lines, is Bruce and Diana talking about tossing Clark into a Lazarus pit.
Yes.
Because that's, I mean, the issue where he has that conversation with Bruce, that was one of my first thoughts, was why isn't Bruce being like, hey, let's go toss you in a Lazarus pit? Like,
it would have been interesting if it was like that was the plan and they were trying to get there, but things kept happening that kept them from there. So you kind of have this ticking clock of like, we're trying to get to the Lazarus pit. If we can only get there, and we could just never get there.
yeah, the ticking clock I like, because like this issue feels like it randomly introduces a ticking clock into this, where it's
'Cause
like
all
it's
of a
gone
sudden-
from I'm dying to like I am actively in the process of
I'm dying right now.
It would have been interesting if you would have had it like every time he's using his powers and stuff, it's accelerating the process. Like he would have time if he would just not do anything, but every time he does something, it's accelerating the process.
It reminded me, and it's kind of poignant because of Superman and Lois. It reminded me of that at first in the beginning of the story. It's like, oh, okay, like every time I use my powers, it's going to be a little worse, because that's kind of what it seems like. And then just all of a sudden, it's like he's falling out of the sky. He's actively turning more and more kryptonite green. And it's like, okay, like you didn't properly set the stakes in the beginning of the story. Then it's not I'm dying, it's I am hours away from death.
Yeah. So it ends with the sentient basically saying, let's go get that imposter. The next is the next Supergirl issue with and this is where they start, basically Lois is still there and Clark's trying to protect Lois as they fight and battle this energy. And this is where we get the Superman showing the fortress he made. This is the bearded Superman takes Jonathan and Lois to and hides them in the other fortress. And then we have, this final big battle where we have Superman and Wonder Woman battling the energy together. And Supergirl is powered up and, she flies out to help him. And it ends where the sentient energy is holding on to Superman and says, you'll finally see I'm the true Superman. Thoughts on this issue?
I mean, as far as like big smash 'em, drag 'em out brawls go, it's kind of tame. I mean, it's a couple tree shots and miniature solar flares from Imposter Superman, and it feels like that's kind of about it.
I feel like this story, what do I want to say? This one and the last one like had elements where they're like, okay, we know this is the final days of Superman, but we got to throw in some other stuff, just kind of set up what we're doing. So there's a little bit more with the black costume Superman, I think, than what you really need. Even though I like seeing him in there, I really don't think this 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of him should have been in this issue. That's something you could have done later. And then, so we get the Kara coming to him. James, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. It's got we've been reading this whole book at this point, and we've got all these different elements in it. It's kind of where is everybody at? This is, it's part 7 of 8. So, I mean, what's happening? Everybody kind of like comes together, He has Batman get Lois out of there. You get to see where Black Suit Superman and his family went off to. His own fortress is kind of cool, but he gets rid of Lois and then you gotta fight lots of stuff, some blows and everything. Then we just had Kara earlier in earlier in the book, and she knows Clark's dying, so she like takes off. I mean, it's kind of setting up your last issue, bringing all of your elements together. You know, as a chapter in this story, it kind of is like it is what it needs to be. You know, because we already know that this all these stories, that's how it's built across all of the books. You know, it's written for the whole story. So that's this chapter here, setting all your elements up for where they have to be in the end.
All right, so let's get to the final issue. Basically, him fighting the sentient energy, and then Kara shows up, kicks the sentient energy. Then Batman hits it with the bat plane. Classic Batman.
Right.
And then
Fly this like $10 million aircraft into you.
Superman's taking the energy into space, but he's losing power. So the other Superman shows up and says, "Let's finish this thing." And he's like, "Who are you?" He says, "A friend." And then New 52 Superman punches black bearded Superman because he says, "Right now, we're part of the same team." I'm saying, "Good to hear, because whoever you are, the world's going to need you." And then we have a big explosion of the sentient energy in space, and Clark is falling, and then bearded Superman catches him.
Yeah, he plans to use his solar flare to kind of negate and absorb all of their energy combined. So the explosion of his solar flare energy doesn't like wreck and kill everything and everyone.
And the splash page of bearded Superman catching him, that page is pretty phenomenal in terms of the artwork. I mean, 2 Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Supergirl all in there. I mean, it's an impressive splash page for being how simple it is.
Yeah, the colors on the splash page before it with the explosion is pretty awesome.
I like how Lana and Steel show up. And it's basically Clark, he's saying his goodbyes here to everybody. And, we got a lot of like, make me proud, Kara. You can count on that, cousin. And then Steel, thanks for being there to inspire me. And then he has the line to looking at, Wonder Woman has the "Let's go, darling, it's all right. Your parents are waiting for you." And he has the "What a lucky man I was." And then he basically like explodes with energy, and we see like energy shoot to Lois and Lana. And it says all that energy, his body consumed itself from within.
And here is my biggest problem with this Death of Superman story is they literally turn him to dust. Because it feels like their way of being like, not only is New 52 Superman gone, he is never coming back. Like, this version is done. Here's classic Superman that you guys have been clamoring for. Don't expect to see New 52 one ever again.
And it's kind of a weird, cheap. But then we see like Around the World Without Superman. We see people reading the paper. We see the tease of like, and that's what's funny is like this is the end of the New 52, but yet it's still labeled under Rebirth. Because it is so much setting up everything. Because we have Lex looking at his Superman Lexo suit, and then Lois is writing Superman: The Hero's Life by Lois Lane. And that's the end of the book, And Black's bearded Superman basically says, "I'll find you guys," and that's it, And it's kind of a farewell to Superman, to that story. And it's kind of bittersweet. Like, that's the Clark Kent that we've been following all this time And then, of course, we go on later to have it kind of retcon that this Clark of the New 52 was basically the red energy of Superman. That's why, we get into the rebirth. Lana is like electric red, and then Lois has powers, but then she ends up dying. And
so it is like the energy here. They used the death here to set up more, and it was interesting. Like, it's funny to be able to look back on it. Like, they got struck by this energy, and that's where they have these powers come from.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a death, but at the same time, it just sets up everything.
Yeah. And then we get the Reborn storyline, and they come together. I actually have to read that story.
It's such an odd. I like this ending for New 52 Superman. Like, it's a good send off, and then I guess my issue is also what comes after, because then you get into the Rebirth Superman and you have the issues of Bruce showing up to confront the new Superman. Like, oh, we don't trust you, but we want you to be a part of the Justice League. And then within 2 issues, he's the Superman we've known for 80 years. And they never mentioned that, oh, you remember when that other guy died?
Yeah, and I mean, that's, I think, why they kind of end up pulling the Reborn thing, is it's what brings the Superman story really to the full
I was going to say, that's where they merge.
They merge the two energies,
the red and blue,
making the full Superman now, and bringing the whole world that everything happens somehow. And that's what really kind of solidifies the rebirth of the DC universe, that everything from the past DC universe and the New 52 all happened. So, but there we have it, everybody.
And then even more happened after that.
And don't forget Dr. Manhattan running his experiments of a world without Superman for infinite time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we get Doomsday Clock.
But Superman keeps reappearing over and over and over.
Because that's the whole point.
What if Superman appeared in the 40s? What if he appeared in the 40s? What if he never appeared?
And shoot, I lost my track. Oh well.
My bad.
No, you're fine.
I have thoughts.
Go ahead. Go for
it. We were talking before we started recording. I'm a huge New 52 Action Comics fan. So as good as the send-off is for this version of Superman, to me at the end of it, it's still kind of disrespectful, because it's he dies and gets this really nice send-off where he gets to tell all his friends and family goodbye, and okay, it's time for you to go be with your parents. And then within 2 issues, it's he never existed.
Yeah. It is rough, because I have to reread the beginning of Rebirth and Trinity. Did you read the Rebirth Trinity? Because all that took place before the Reborn, so they're still kind of you're Superman, but you're not.
I've read the Superman solo from Rebirth and Action Comics from Rebirth, and then I don't know, the first 30 issues of Justice League from Rebirth, but I never got around to Trinity.
You should check that out. So, but I agree. This was a good book, but at the same time, it did more setting up for what we're gonna do, and it feels kind of like we're killing Superman, but he's still here too.
Yeah, and even in terms of killing Superman, there was no real build to it. I mean, there was the clues in the stories if you're reading it closely. Like we talked about in the beginning, where they lay out the 3 events. I mean, there's stuff they leave out, the Doomsday virus and all this stuff that he went through. They put the Superman through the ringer, and then it's just and that was all enough to kill him.
Yeah, he just could not bounce back after all that really quick. But you know what that time it is, everybody. It's that part where we Superman and Lois time. Yeah, we're in the final season. Levi, just real quick.
Final season, last 3 episodes.
Just Levi, having you here. Final thoughts, or not final thoughts, Jesus. Thoughts so far on this season.
I'll keep them short. Tyler's the definitive Clark Kent, if you ask me, in terms of live action performances. I don't think anyone's done a better Clark Kent than him, and I don't know if anyone ever will. I also think his version of Superman's getting up there in kind of the best version as well. And of course, I think we've all said it before, Bitsy might be the best Lois we've ever had. And she continues to just put in awesome work this season. I really like Cutlets as Lex this season. We've never got angry Lex in anything, and he is full of rage. But I've got thoughts on Lex this episode because it feels like a very, very different Lex from what we've seen the rest of the season.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that too. I'm just thinking. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I have liked Tyler since he started. I think part of it is seeing Superman in a different place in his life, and the whole being a father angle really hit me hard.
Yep.
And it stays with me, as all of us are fathers. And I think that's going to be, I think no matter how good David is as Superman, I don't think he'll be able to really hit me the way that Tyler has, because of having that extra layer of being the husband and the father. And there's a lot in his Superman that I connect and relate to. Especially over what we've gotten this season, with how we saw how much he actually, especially with the last episode. But this episode, real quick, is called Season 4, Episode 8, Sharp Dressed Man. And it says, Luthor challenges Lois to a live telecast debate. Though not everything is as it seems, John Henry and Clark face a troubling possibility. All right. Time to bust out the handy dandy notebook. See my notebook, Levi? Wait. Let's tape my Superman and Lois notes in. I have a lot of notes.
Yeah,
in this
I like the notebook.
But it starts, okay, you're talking about a different kind of Lex. Like, think about that. It starts with him. He's been shaved with no beard. And I feel like the no beard angle is almost a symbolic way of him making himself open and vulnerable. Because if you think about, even in the flashbacks, he had the full head of hair and a full beard. And now he's completely hairless. And, he's, even in the flashbacks, he was still, and this is kind of funny because you're here, what I was referring to as Levi Lex, because, Levi jeans, because he always was seen with his jeans and everything. But now we have fully shaved Lex in a business suit.
To me, the biggest change, other than the appearances, for the first 7 episodes, the Lex that we've seen is like barely contained rage. Like, it is visible on Cutlets' face every time he's on screen for 7 episodes that he is furious at Lois more than anyone. And then this episode, like, it's very much more restrained. Like, it's still there if you're looking for it, but he is very, like, restrained compared to the rest of the season.
And I think that comes from, if we look at the last time Lex appeared, the basically scene of where
He gets his
she's
ass
kind of
kicked.
like, well, like yeah, but like she basically says you're playing this all wrong, and it feels like it becomes a submission to Amanda to kind of be led by her and what to do. So he's very much following her lead.
Yeah, this is her plan in this episode. But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, he's put in a great performance, and it's just really interesting to see how quickly their lives changed since the reveal. So everybody's dealing with their own thing in this. Lex and Amanda, and we get Milton Fine in this episode. Like coming into contact with John Henry, and
let's just be honest, they've never yet say Fine. They just say Milton.
They do just say Milton, yes.
Who's a computer?
But clearly he's still it's clearly he's still a brainiac, at least in this. Not the like a I say brainiac is in like he's like the smartest person out of everybody. All the things he's doing.
What'd you say?
This is Smallville Brainiac. This is
and that's what I'm like. My thing is, are they using Milton as a hacker? Not saying it's Brainiac, but they're kind of winking like, oh, could it be? And we're all jumping like it's Brainiac, just to mess with us.
I think it's an intentional messing because there's a few times there's the green glow from the monitors, and then I remember, I think it was the actress who plays Amanda. The actress who plays Amanda, she had their Instagram takeover before the episode aired, and she made a reference to Brainiac in there. Okay. This is just Tyler speculation. What if like it's revealed that Brainiac is really there, but it's actually Amanda? Like she's actually Brainiac. Like just to mess with us. But,
right. Well, they have done some sneaky stuff trying to mess with you. You know what I mean? Like all the way back when I mean you get the Kryptonian half brother in the first season. You get Doomsday, who just turns out to be tiny. You know what I mean? Because Tyler's not the biggest Superman or even the biggest character on the show.
They're like everyone's like, guys, stop talking about height. They're like,
so I'm not even talking about height. I'm literally just talking about build and everything too. You know what I mean? He's just not the biggest.
He was more man.
He's not the biggest. Yeah, he's not even the biggest character on the show, but he's still Superman, like in every aspect of the word. But the way he, it's lost my train of thought.
So I told you before we started filming, I had thoughts on the episode.
Go for it.
Here, I just want to throw this out. This Lex is really good, and I like this episode, but to me, it was the weakest episode so far of the season. Because other than the Doomsday, him creating Doomsday, this Lex was never really presented as much of a threat on his own, and something John Henry and his daughter said when they were trying to figure out who was hacking their suits, and they're like, well, it couldn't be Lex, because this Lex isn't a computer genius. And I'm like, okay, so what made this Lex a bad guy? I mean, he murdered people, which is normal Lex Luthor stuff, but like, what was the threat that made it so Superman got involved?
Yeah, like we're kind of, glancing over like the whole history. There was more to it, because there was the line earlier in the season where he said Lex Luthor's the one that discovered about kryptonite as his weakness, and was they thought was providing the kryptonite weapons, like during the bank heist episode flashback where he had the kryptonite like in his neck, and Lois like pulls it out. And I agree with you. Like this, if I had to pick a weak episode, this one was the one, because I felt like like Lex is he's off his game in this one because he's trying to play calm. He's going for the sympathetic. It's like he's deterred from the mission and the vision that he had.
Well, he says in this episode, like he kind of has a sort of a breakdown because he can't control everything, a panic attack because everything's not on it. He didn't set all the variables on the table. Having we didn't even mention that Godfrey is in this episode.
Dude, you're just jumping ahead, man. Where's the setup, James? Where's the build? The build is they told us that Tom Cavanaugh was going to be in this season. Then they teased us with the names Milton and Brainiac. Everybody jumped that Tom Cavanaugh was going to be Brainiac, and they completely threw us for a bit by making him Godfrey. What did you guys think about that?
I really liked it, and I was hoping when it happened, it was like, oh, okay, like Godfrey's going to manipulate this whole situation, which he kind of does. I was hoping it would be Lois is going to try and lay out the background of why this Lex is such a bad guy, and Godfrey's going to have like an explanation to make it all look like you're just really like losing it here, Lois. That's all totally normal stuff, and I was hoping this is the episode where we were going to get the backstory, and then it was going to come through Godfrey's part in the show.
And I agree, like that is something I hadn't put a whole lot of thought into. It's just more of who this Lex was and what he was into that brought Superman and him against each other, other than the Boss Moxie faux murder. Just we know they had beef before that. Now I know that a lot of people are thinking, oh, they've mentioned Godfrey, so that means Darkseid. It doesn't. There was like in Smallville, Godfrey appears in the final season before being possessed by like the Darkseid spirit or whatever. So this is just the person Godfrey. I don't think.
No, if Granny Goodness pops up, I mean.
Yeah, I don't really think we're alluding to Darkseid because we have 2 episodes left. I don't think we're gonna, get there. But it was nice to see Tom Cavanaugh appear. My other thought was nice that he was going to be in this season. I was hoping he'd be like the Harrison Wells, or he's Emil Hamilton on this earth. That was kind of my hope.
Oh, either one of those would have been interesting. I don't feel like it's supposed to be a Darkseid. I think that's just kind of another hat tip to something in connection with Superman to have Godfrey be in there. Still sowing the distrust, especially of the superhero. So I think it was great to see Kavanaugh in the role, and he played. He tried to play. He was talking about being Switzerland and like
being neutral.
holding being neutral, holding the line, and you knew that wasn't going to happen.
I mean, come on. Can we what do you call it? Looking over my notes here. First of all, one of the big things we have is that Lois is waiting to find out if she does or doesn't have cancer. Which we learned she doesn't have cancer. She's cancer free. So, that's great. But can I ask you guys, seriously, what's up with all the Jamie Kennedy references?
That was weird. I wonder, is he a friend of the showrunner? Or?
That was like, it would have been kind of funny or meta if it had been like they called out somebody like, dude, Stephen Amell wanted to be my friend, or something like that, kind of like or like I don't know.
Actor who does the My Adventures of Superman.
Like Jack Quaid. That would have been great. Like Jack Quaid, like someone's kind of hip and new, and then also connected to the Superman universe would have been kind of cool. But Jamie Kennedy, they mentioned that like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, seriously, why?
Right?
Or
if it was the late 90s,
or if they had been like that James Vanderbeek wants to be friends or something, like having talked about Varsity Blues in the last like episode or whatever. But yeah, it just very much felt like very out of like that's weird. But did you guys see who directed this episode?
No.
Lex Luthor himself, Michael Cutlitz.
Oh, nice.
So I always think that's cool.
That explains why he just sat around and made out with Amanda.
Oh yeah, he was like, "We're gonna do that again." Go.
Yep.
It's a
Like,
bad-
hold on.
that was a-
Yep.
It was a bad
Roll it
take.
again.
Let's go again. This is episode of Lex manipulating the scene. We get a really interesting scene where a brick is thrown through the window, and Clark catches and it says "liar," and John Henry's the one that points out like you didn't hear the brick until it came through the window.
Which, how does John Henry know that? Did he develop superhuman reaction time and we missed it?
I think it's just him paying attention to Clark, like what Clark might have done had he sensed it beforehand. My favorite. So the whole thing is Lex is trying to come out to the public that and twist everything and spin it. But what I like is if this had been a different Lex actor, I think it would have felt different. But knowing who this Lex is, it doesn't feel right. Like you don't feel the kind of sleaze that that Lex usually would pull off, where he's like, "Oh, I tried to go and see them and apologize and forgive them. I was even going to move my corporate to Smallville and give jobs to everyone." It doesn't feel the same coming from this Lex as it would have saying coming from a different Lex Luthor actor that plays that sleazeball angle. With, like you said, this Lex being so full of like anger and rage, like coming in from prison.
I don't even think it's missing the sleaze factor. I don't think Cutlitz pulls off that type of charming that would be needed to do that. And I like Cutlitz, but he is not like a charming Lex Luthor. He's not. Rosenbaum would have killed that interview scene. Like,
Right.
I mean,
all we've seen from him is the rage. You know what I mean?
and there's even in the flashbacks, though, going back to how they show us in the flashbacks before prison, he was very much that same style. I mean, I really like John Cryer when he first appeared on Supergirl as a guest star in season 4.
Yeah.
But then when they kept him around by season 5, they kind of had watered him down and made him a little bit more cheesy. Are you guys getting your tickets for Honey, I Shrunk the Slaughter Cabin? You in?
Oh, absolutely.
They've been talking about that movie for what, like a season and a half now?
Well, did you, Levi, before the last episode, 2 episodes ago, I cracked up laughing during the real serious scene. Or was it last episode? See, it's all running together now.
It was the reveal episode, so
yeah, last episode where the movie was I Still Know What You Did Last Flag Day.
Yeah.
I had in my notes when they kept talking about Milton. I was like, wouldn't it have been great if they got the actor that played Milton in the Suicide Squad to be Milton and shows up? Like,
it's all connected.
Like,
all
who's Milton? And then he dies, and it's like, oh, Milton.
Yeah.
Milton's still with us? So Lex Luthor, his whole plan, he calls out Lois to do this debate on TV. And she's like going in, and Jania goes, she's being dumb. Like, and I put Jania's quote. I just love it. But
Jamie said the same thing. She came in and Lois was showing up for the interview, and she's like, "Oh my God, you are so dumb. What are you doing?"
It's showing her sense of proving that she's right, and it's like her weakness. But let's back up a quick second here. We have basically short story of it is Clark basically has signs of heart disease, and that one day you're going to wake up and not be Superman anymore. Because of the heart, it's basically turning him human. I'm going to go with it for the sake of this story they're telling. But even it being a human heart that's been enhanced, I don't see it doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like it just feels like with all his biology and everything, I could see him being less powerful and depowered some, but eventually turning human basically and everything. Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, I could see like him still being able to do work on the farm with a little extra oomph, but not like be Superman,
but
in the
but
end.
even
But at this point, like it's losing his powers and basically not having them and being able to grow old and die.
and I'm like I said, I don't particularly like it, but at the same time, for the story that they're telling, I'm gonna go with it.
Well, I mean, for the story that they're telling, it works because he's leaving the planet with 2 more Supermen. At the end
Yeah,
of it.
and
But
that's kind of I think the point is like leaving it to the next generation. And
I can't tell if they're going like happy ending Superman with like he gets to ride off into the sunset and be human for his last. What they say he could
His
have his
last
longest.
years on Earth with Lois.
Yeah,
They-
because they said his heart will probably last as long as it would have for the general. So 10 years because he
I
was
would
in his 60s.
he said that he was 60s. I would say he's got 20.
So is
You know,
by
into
the
his
end of it,
80s.
by the end of it, is he just riding off into the sunset and growing old with Lois, or because they were a little unclear? Is he going to be depowered by the end of this, or is he going to be dead by the end of this? Because
Yeah,
those are 2 very different outcomes.
I just feel like he's
I mean, I
gonna
don't feel like he's going to be dead.
I just
I
feel like
just
he's
feel
going
like-
to be depowered, and then he'll eventually kind of grow old and age and die with Lois like normal, and it's kind of a bittersweet, ending. Um, it's like having Superman, but then having kind of for the man who has a or whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow type ending, where he's human with Lois, but yet
Right.
his sons are there to take over to still be Superman.
In a weird way, it reminds me of the same comic book we were just talking about at the start of the show. Because I mean, the episode basically has a "I'm dying" moment in it. So,
It does.
which was an excellent way to bring Wole back as John Henry too for his, 3rd appearance of the season. So
I think that's been the biggest detriment to me is like the lack of John Henry. Like I do appreciate that they do have dialogue that says John Henry's at the DoD doing this and stuff, so it kind of gives an explanation of where he is. Because even
Right.
Solomon's like, where's Steele? I'm like, buddy.
Well, plus in this episode, when he talks about the DoD, him and Nat are designing an entire K team over there for the DoD. So like they're both busy working as well. Not only are they like trying to like secure the testimony and the interrogation of Otis and things like that.
Otis, who dies of suicide shortly before Lex goes on TV. So I put in my notes when they bring them to Lex's. Clark even says, this is the definition of home team or home field advantage for Lex, and it's a trap. I'd be worried that they would be wearing kryptonite, or there'd be some sort of kryptonite, like that he would have some kryptonite there, or some like low level red solar just to mess with Clark because he knows he would be there. But what we find is Lois has in her pocket Lex's daughter. She's going to call on the phone, basically admit as evidence of what Lex has been doing, because Lex used footage from his fight with Clark to show that, to try to prove his point of what he was doing and being benevolent to these people, but they threatened him. But Milton, who was saved by John Henry and Nat earlier on, was able to hack into their suits and take over, shut them down and take over, and sends John Henry in the suit to battle Superman, or to attack Superman, while Nat's suit goes off and attacks the boys, because Nat's actually with the boys. Because we learned that Candace, learns the secret 2 episodes ago, and then when they tell everyone, Candace is being harassed by everybody, and
I did like how he was just like, take the money.
Yeah, he's like, take the money, tell him. She's being harassed and breaks up with John. And so they go to see her at her aunt's house while, what do you call it? We learned that Nat hasn't got to see Mateo very much because of just being busy with the DOD. So
I got a question. I want your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
On Lex's plan here, revealing the footage of him getting his ass kicked. Because this is Amanda's plan, like revealing the footage in an interview and all that. So did Lex set up a camera thinking like, I'm going to get footage of me kicking Superman's ass under these red lights, and it just not went the way he thought it was going to? Because why else was he filming if this wasn't his plan?
I mean, maybe he just wanted to have it like for him to sit back and be like, I got to kill him with my own bare hands.
That was my thought. That's the only thing that makes sense, is he wanted that, like, this is the time I beat Superman's ass when he didn't have powers, and it proves I'm more of a man than Superman is. And then he just gets his ass handed to him in that last episode. So he held on to that footage, and she was like, all right, great. Like, now we can make you look sympathetic with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to say plot hole, because plot holes get overblown in
they do.
online culture.
Just because something's not
an interesting choice.
Yeah, just because something's not completely explained doesn't mean it's a plot hole. Jumping to the end, I was this close to thinking that at the end, Lex was going to throw her off the top of his penthouse. Because it was her plan. She made him look weak. She undermined him and was trying to take the control away from him. Because I was like going to be, because, she put him in a vulnerable space where his daughter was almost exposed on TV. So I'm glad
I'm not the only one who had that thought.
Oh, well, no, I mean, he did burn all our stuff, but still.
But I mean, like, you saw how he said, like, we were so close to having Elizabeth.
No.
And
I want
Superman,
the same thing you want.
Yeah, but they blamed on Superman. Superman, like, because he busted out, and I just kind of was like, what I wish would have happened. Okay, let's back up a beat. So we have Nat's suit attack the boys, and it's fighting and taking them down. But then they double team it with their heat vision and basically melt Nat's suit completely away. And then Nat's arc in this is that now she decides to be part of the DOD and do it, not because of her grandfather, but because she chooses to. What I would have loved to have seen, okay, is we see John's suit come flying and Clark goes, but as John's suit comes, you see the boys come and boom, take John up. And the boys are trying to hold John. And then while the interview concludes and Lois pulls a win, and then Clark steps out and goes, so that, we kind of end on a win for our team. And Lex is, like I said, Lex is undermined because of Amanda, and he, doesn't get his outcome. But the big twist is at the end, they're able to, Clark gets John out of the suit, or Milton removes the suit from John, and Lex gets the suit now, and Milton's going to update it. So it's kind of coming ironically full circle, because if you think about when the series started, the AI referred to him as Captain Luthor, and we all thought that this was a Luthor, but it wasn't. The tech that he started with, he took from Lex. So this is going to be now Lex's battle suit he's going to repurpose. So
This episode definitely felt like it was all set up just for that moment. Like
pretty
it
much,
was
and
setting the stage for. Not that they haven't said it's a 2-part finale, but it's setting the stage for episode 10.
Oh yeah, building up
feel-
to the last 2 episodes.
what do you call it? I feel like if there was an episode that I had to say was a filler more, it would be this one. I have
Well-
a sense that in the final episode we are going to get some sort of time jump. Like I think we're going to jump ahead sometime in the last episode.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the plans are. I expect like in the final moments of the thing, you know, to kind of have some kind of time jumps to see where like somebody is later in life, especially how personal these stories have been, you know, for the seasons. But this show's done a really good job of keeping its own especially this season, but the whole show of keeping its story going on, but like building up and coming full circle on things, like especially in this season with going back to Bizarro and the Bizarro Earth and then coming around to season 1 where everybody thought it was Luther, like you said before. Like the show's done a pretty good job of, and each season bringing most of the elements around full circle.
I would say that one thing I wish would happen, but I doubt it will, is I would love to get a new Steel suit for Steel to show up in more of a traditional Steel suit with these, you know, the riveted S shield and the cape on. You know, at the end, I would love to see that, or even if it was like Natasha in kind of like her Steel suit. And I want to see,
That'd be pretty cool.
I want to see the boys in their own suit at the end. And
I hope so.
Stupid cat. But
You don't want the goggles with the flight hat?
no, I'm past that. We've used that. It's okay. That's just a filler. Like, and I kind of wish they would have put like a symbol on the leather jacket as like a ode to Smallville. But I want them to have a full on super suit, you know. And
yeah, it's kind of cool to see them work together and just like incinerate that suit, though.
I want to see them work together more.
I think that'll definitely be the theme of the next episode based off the preview of John wanting to get a little murdery.
Yeah, I haven't watched that. I never watched those little tease previews for next episodes.
The interesting bit is they say they have to come up with a plan for Luther, and John's like, not verbatim, but basically, why don't we just kill him?
I joke with Jania, like how cool would it have been is like when Luther sat down with Jordan and John in the diner in like the first or second episode, if Jordan just would have been like and like broke Luther's neck and like no one would have saw anything because he moves so fast.
Ultimate plot swerve, John's gonna go supervillain and Jordan is gonna be Superman going forward. So
you know, I've heard that, like, and if we had more time, I could see that type of splinter. They might do that if this was like traditional CW show.
Yeah, we're on season 6 with 22 episodes, 23 episodes a season.
Right, you know, because I told Jania, like, there's enough story in this season alone. They could have made 2 seasons.
Oh, 100%.
If they would have let it breathe a little bit and then like actually gave John Henry more and Kyle and the cushion, like we had been getting every other season, you know.
If they weren't going to give us another season, I would have settled for the normal, was it 15 episode count? That would have had a little bit more breathing room in there.
But hey, that's our episode. We got 2 more to go. Levi, thanks for being here today.
Of
Any
course.
plugs you want to shout out where people can find you?
I am mostly just on Instagram right now, just as the round Superman. So
All right. Everybody check us out. And I did want to say I did run a quick poll that lasted. I threw out and I asked people where they watch Superman and Lois. Okay. 40% said the CW app. 47% said live/cable. And 13% said digital purchase. So, yeah, interesting stuff, guys. Interesting stuff. But that's it for us today. And remember,
Look up in the sky!
Thank you for joining us today on the Krypton Report. We ask you check out our social media. We have a YouTube where we do YouTube specials. You can check out our dollar Patreon, like we talked about, where we do specials. Check the QR code here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on X and all other social media.
Look up in the sky!
Tyler here. Hope you're enjoying the podcast today. I just want to talk about another project I've really been working on. It's the Requel. It used to be just part of our Patreon, and we still do Patreon exclusives, but I've really pumped it up, and I've started inviting friends to join me as we pitch movie ideas. I ask everyone if they can go and check it out. It's under Jonathan Tyler Patrick on my YouTube, and go like it, subscribe, and if you want to come on and pitch an idea, come on. Just check it out. It's a fun time.
I am Brian Peters, the creator and host of Gravely Amusing. For the past 30 years, I've studied the history of gods and monsters in pop culture and our world. As a student of theology and history, I've tried to understand evil and its impact on us. As a writer, I've tried to share this knowledge. As a comedian, I've tried to make people laugh as I do it. But as a man-child, I'm still that scared 7-year-old boy. Join me as I share the history of horror and sci-fi, discuss classic and modern pop culture, and share a creepy story or two. This podcast may scare you, it may horrify you, or it may leave you gravely amused. Listen to Gravely Amusing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter at gravely_amusing or on TikTok at gravely amusing.
We have a $1 Patreon. Yes, I know everyone asks for money, but our $1 Patreon each month gets you commentary tracks for releasing movies, DC movies. It gets you my Requel series where I pitch ideas about movie sequels, prequels, or whatever. It also gets special bonus episodes. So check that out for $1 a month. That's all we ask. Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and help us keep going. Check out the link in the show notes or Patreon Krypton Report.